Oh boy, coming up, we're traveling down a hazardous road of rock history with the stories of some of the most controversial songs ever. It's our latest edition of Taboo Songs, and this one is probably the most taboo ever, including a hit song from one of the biggest selling albums ever, where a male singer, S-L-U-T, shamed his ex-girlfriend in the song. I can't say it, I have to spell it. She had to sing it with him for the next few decades, but it got Me Too'd in the Me Too movement, got the silent treatment when that iconic female singer downed it and they stopped playing it. Then there's a song that was written on a napkin and it name-checked sleazy gentlemen's clubs. It became so big it increased their businesses tenfold. Plus the happy song that sounded like a tune from the Partridge Family, but hidden in the lyrics is a very dark secret. And once DJs figured it out, it was banned across the board. Speaking of disturbing though, we have the story of the most horrifying song ever. So frightening, many have warned not to listen to the song at night. It's actually become a famous challenge. And those who have dared have become physically sick and bad things have happened. One famous critic called it the scariest song ever written. I have some great stories coming up on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember eating those twin popsicles that you tried to make too and always got it all over you, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Orange was the worst. Make sure to subscribe below right now to be a part of our Music History Daily, straight from the artists. All right, so it's time for another edition of our series Taboo Songs. We haven't done one of these in a long while. You know, a song can be marked as taboo or stricken with the word taboo if it tackles sensitive, uncomfortable subjects like death or explicit sexuality, blasphemy, drugs, or social deviations of sorts, crossing lines of polite or mainstream conversation typically avoid. It's these bold, boundary-pushing topics that can push a track into controversial territory and sometimes into cultural lightning rods. Now, in this episode, we're counting down 7 more of the most controversial taboo songs ever. When you get to our top 2, pretty rough stuff. We're going to begin with a tune that made adults bristle back in 1977 and makes people even more nervous today. Coming in at number 7, I've got Christine 16 by Kiss. I think anytime you have a girl man singing about an infatuation with a person, you know, under the age of 18, you're going to go right to the heart of Taboo City.
I don't usually say things like this to girls our age.
Christine 16 by Kiss is a song that sparked more debates than most in the 70s. The sting of the controversy came from the lyrics written by Gene Simmons, which describe his infatuation with a girl that's 16. Gene was a 27-year-old man talking about what he saw walking out of high school one day, according to the song.
I saw you coming out of school that day. That day I knew.
Now, the song's name was actually thought up by his bandmate Paul Stanley, who had planned to write a song with that title himself, but he said Gene beat him to it.
Christine 16.
The subject matter on Christine 16 made some listeners squirm and some radio programmers balk. Because of the sensitive content, a number of stations were hesitant to play it in their regular rotation.
I've got to have you. I've got to have you.
In a few markets in major cities like New York and Buffalo, they day part of the song as an album cut for after 7 p.m. play only.
She's been around, but she's young and clean.
I can't play it on my radio show. But, you know, Kiss has never shied away from controversy. They thrived on Taboo. I mean, the Taboo band. The band acknowledged the disturbance that the song had created and faced the pushback head on, balancing the provocative storytelling with the band's persona and the era's radio norms. Christine 16 remains a touchstone for how a song can provoke strong reactions while still driving wide discussion about artistic license, censorship, and the boundaries of rock lyricism. You know, when Kiss recorded their version, Gene Simmons instructed lead guitarist Ace Frehley to copy Eddie Van Halen's solo from the demo that Gene funded for Van Halen. True story. Here's what Ace told me about Christine 16.
I remember doing that solo, and it was completely mine. Eddie Van Halen had nothing to do with the writing of that solo.
Yeah. You know,
I don't think it would be politically correct to do that song today.
Yeah, I know. A guy who's in love with a 16-year-old, right?
I mean, that shows you how times change. I mean, I can't think of a band that would have the guts to put out a song called Christine 16 or, Joan, I don't know, whatever. You're talking about an underage girl, which will get you in jail for statutory rape. And Gene's going, I have to have you. I have to have you. In the lyrics. So it wouldn't be happening today, 2024. No way.
Even with this night's only airplay restriction, Christine 16 by Kiss made it to number 25 on the Billboard Hot 100, one of Kiss's biggest hits. All right, back to our countdown of Taboo songs. We're moving on to a song that sparked more than a few wild interpretations and a lot of radio pause buttons. At number 6, I've got Ode to Billy Joe from Bobbie Gentry from 1967.
Billy Joe McAllister jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge.
The story of Bobbie Gentry's Ode to Billy Joe is pure fiction, a stirring tale around a Mississippi family's dinner discussion about a local boy named Billy Joe McAllister who jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge, a real bridge that's located in Little Old Money, Mississippi. The bridge collapsed in 1972, actually, 5 years after the single gradually worked its way to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100.
Comes to no good up on Choctaw Ridge.
Now, what made Ode to Billy Joe so taboo isn't just the person who takes his own life. That's at the heart of the story. It's the mystery of what exactly was thrown off that bridge and what the song might be saying about the world watching in.
Billy Joe was throwing something off the Tallahatchie Bridge.
From the start, many listeners and a fair number of radio programmers felt the material was just too dark or unsettling to treat as a typical single to consider playing on the radio. The wonder only intensified after the tune was adapted into a novel and a film, fueling endless speculation about Billy Joe's act and the forces behind it.
Years after the whispers and the rumors, the Tallahatchie River gives up its secrets.
Now, over the years, theories about hidden relationships, coming-of-age secrets, or even an unplanned pregnancy have circulated. Some listeners imagined a taboo romance between Billy Joe and the narrator, and others pondered the possibility of a pregnancy and a tragic outcome. The real point, though, according to Bobbie Gentry herself, isn't really the object thrown or the specifics of the act. Actually, it's not an object at all. I'll get to that in a minute. It's the world's reaction and how a family's casual but devastating response can feel colder than the tragedy itself. Sound familiar?
Never had a lick of sense. Pass the biscuits, please.
Bobbie emphasized that the lasting message isn't about the sensational detail at all, but about indifference and the lack of empathy that can turn human suffering into a sideshow. She called it unconscious cruelty.
It was a shame about Billy Joe anyhow.
Really, everyone thought the mystery was what they threw off the bridge. That was true. Gentry later admitted in private that it was a baby, Billy Joe and the narrator's child, making the song very dark, especially for back then.
He said he saw a girl that looked a lot like you up on Choctaw Ridge.
A 1976 film titled Ode to Billy Joe, with a different spelling of Billy, brought the song to the big screen in theatrical form. The movie featured a character named Bobbie Lee Hartley, played by Glynis O'Connor, who is a stand-in for Bobbie Gentry. Now, Bobbie isn't in the film, but she did re-record Ode to Billy Joe for the soundtrack, so there's that.
What the song didn't tell you, the movie will show you.
That re-recording turned out to be among Bobbie Gentry's last high-profile projects as an artist, after which she mostly stepped out of the spotlight. The last time Bobbie appeared in public was when she attended the Academy of Country Music Awards on April 30th, 1982. Ode to Billy Joe was the only major hit that she had on the pop charts.
Into the muddy water off the Tallahatchie Bridge.
So I want to take a moment and mention today's sponsor. You know that one guy in the friend group who hit a crazy 5-leg parlay week 1 and wouldn't stop bragging about it the rest of the season? Yeah, that guy could be you with MyBookie. MyBookie makes it insanely easy to get in on the action. college ball, NFL, super contests, and survivor pools, you name it. All the spreads, player props, and in-game lines you could want all under one roof. And if you're new to MyBookie, you get a little extra juice. Check this out. Use our code ROCK, R-O-C-K, and any bet you choose up to $500 is fully covered. Make your play, and if it doesn't hit, you get it right back when you opt in using your Bet Back bonus token. No better time to jump in, no better place to play. Football's back. Let's make some money with MyBookie. All right, coming in at the number 5 spot, we've got an oldie, but a goodie. Stagger Lee by Lloyd Price. Now, before we get into why Stagger Lee was taboo, we need to go all the way back to 1895, where it all started. It was in a St. Louis saloon on 11th and Morgan, actually. A levy hand named William Lyons, who was 25, was chatting with his friend Lee Sheldon, carriage driver. They'd both been enjoying a few drinks. The mood was high, it was a little loud, and the talk turned to politics. Things heated up. Lyons ended up yanking Shelton's hat off in a fit. Shelton, clearly riled, demanded the hat back. Lyons refused. In response, Shelton, who was a pimp, pulled out a revolver and blasted Lyons in the stomach. Lyons collapsed and Shelton nonchalantly grabbed his hat and walked away. Lyons was rushed to the dispensary with serious wounds, and Sheldon was arrested and taken to Chestnut Street Station. Billy Lyons later died from his wounds. At least Shelton's first trial ended in a hung jury. Then at the second, he was convicted and served time and died in 1912. Then it became a song. There were well over 60 known recorded versions and countless others that were never recorded. Now, the most famous version, of course, recorded by Mr. Personality, Lloyd Price, in 1958. So in its original form, Stagger Lee was very graphic. It reenacted the deadly altercation, making it way too violent for mainstream consumption, especially back in the 50s. Dick Clark, for example, who was, of course, a very influential person that could single-handedly break a record, he refused to play Lloyd's original version. So Lloyd Price had to tone down the lyrics, re-record it. He had to change the altercation to a heated argument. The original version was taboo, but Lloyd's alteration, it was genius. It became the first song of the rock era with altered lyrics to hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, actually. Right, coming in number 4 on our list of 7 taboo songs is one that just recently joined the ranks of the taboo songs. It's actually been a big hit for nearly 50 years, and it's one that we've talked about several times on Professor of Rock as one of the great rock hits of the 70s. But today, I've got a slightly different take on it. It's Lindsey Buckingham's vindictive Go Your Own Way from Fleetwood Mac's landmark album, Rumours. Stevie Nicks was really taken aback by the lyric, "Packing up, shacking up is all you want to do." In Go Your Own Way, she felt it painted her as being promiscuous, right? In recent times, she said in an interview that it was a song about, well, I'm going to have to spell it here because YouTube, otherwise it'll get taken down, but S-L-U-T, shaming, right? Stevie thought it was incredibly unfair, it was untrue, and humiliating to her. She had to sing it next to him night after night after night. Of course, Lindsey Buckingham wrote the song about their breakup, but he refused to remove that controversial line. Even though Stevie begged him to do it, it only fueled her anger. Stevie, she nagged him, is what was said, every time they performed the track, knowing that Buckingham was pushing her buttons and trying to get her frustrated. The disagreement over the lyrics was so intense that Stevie actually stated that there were times she wanted to go over and kill him. Every time she heard that cold line on stage, she just burned up inside. She truly believed that Lindsey wrote Go Your Own Way to make her suffer. It was a really intentional way for Lindsey to lash out at his ex-lover every single night. He was unapologetic about the hurt he had caused, and in response, Lindsey said it was a rather truthful and blunt observation, but he also said it was just the way he writes songs, and he wasn't going to remove it just because she asked. He wasn't going to do that to his lyrics. He viewed it as an honest, even harsh expression of how he felt during the breakup. And of course, in response, Stevie wrote Dreams as her own counterpoint. More subtle, perhaps, but just as powerful a perspective on the painful split. While Lindsey's Go Your Own Way tore at the broken relationship, Dreams offered a quieter, piercing take from Stevie. Now, during the Me Too movement, there were some stations who took it out of rotation because of the lyrics and its S-L-U-T shaming. But it hasn't taken on a wide scale. It just didn't take of people taking it out. Currently, it's played as often as it always was, as far as I could check. So it has survived this taboo status. Originally went to number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1977. But for a few years, it was touch and go. Oh man, we're honing in on our top three, and I got some crazy ones here. Next up, we're taking a trip back to the Sunset Strip, circa 1987, with the track at number 3 in our 7 Taboo Song Spotlight, The Spectacle of Girls, Girls, Girls by the world's most notorious rock band, Motley Crue. I can imagine how hard it is to believe that in 2025, Girls, Girls, Girls by Motley Crue would be considered taboo. I mean, what's wrong with living a hedonistic rock and roll lifestyle, right? Of course, I'm being facetious because artists just don't write songs about watching exotic dancers strut their stuff in a gentleman's club anymore. You could call it a lost art, I guess. When it came to the 4 members of Motley Crue, it represented a lifestyle that nearly killed them. Despite the huge popularity for Motley in '87, the video for Girls, Girls, Girls was initially rejected by MTV, which led to the making of a heavily censored version. Nowadays, Girls, 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 or any song that blatantly objectifies women is considered taboo. And a song themed around sex, drugs, and rock and roll is a far cry from the more socially conscious and emotionally reflective themes that you hear in a lot of modern music, right? I mean, rap music never does that. It's just that pesky glam metal from the 80s. Girls, Girls, Girls fueled accusations against Motley Crue that their music and public persona promoted misogyny and sexism, which led some people in recent times to try to cancel them, right? Withdraw their support. There was actually even a heated exchange within the band when former lead singer John Corabi refused to sing Girls, Girls, Girls because he strongly felt that the song was no longer appropriate in the modern times. He wanted it scrapped from their set list. Nikki Sixx, the primary lyricist and the true leader of Motley, lost it on the short timer, reminded him that he had no power within the band to make that call. And Tommy Lee actually stuck up for Corabi, telling Nikki that if he isn't comfortable singing it, they should just replace it. So for a time, they mixed up their set and they didn't play Girls, 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 one of their biggest hits, one of their calling cards, one of their most well-known songs. John Corabi took over the role of frontman for Motley when the band fired Vince Neil in '92. 4 years later, they fired Corabi and made up with Vince and brought him back. With Vince's return came the reinsertion of Girls, Girls, Girls in the band's live show. So there was that. And then there was the exchange between Eddie Vedder with Nikki Sixx. Eddie tried to start something in the press, and I thought it was a little self-righteous. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens in rock and roll. It wasn't just in glam metal. Anyway, maybe I should do an episode on it. Couple of interesting facts behind the song. So originally, Nikki Sixx jotted down club names on a napkin during a Florida bender, and those became the lyrics. And because of his mention of several of those gentlemen's clubs, like the Dollhouse, Tropicana, Crazy Horse, and Marble Arch, it made them famous overnight and saw their business increase tenfold when the song was a hit and because of the high-profile video. Like I said, the video was banned. In fact, the original version was filmed in an actual strip club with dancers who didn't have clothes. MTV banned it immediately, so they reshot it at the 7th Bell in LA featuring cages, lingerie, and neon sleaze. And even that was almost pulled, and then The motorcycle intro, that was actually real. It wasn't an effect. Nikki Sixx actually mic'd his Harley Davidson in the studio. And then in a touch of irony, many strip clubs refused to play it early on, saying that it was just too on the nose. Most say it was because it pushed the business of the other clubs, but the song was shorthand for the band, let's be honest. Nikki Sixx later admitted it wasn't just a song, it was our daily life back then. Girls, Girls, Girls was the third highest charting single for Motley Crue. It peaked at number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100. And the Taboo track that people, even the former band member, have tried to get rid of. But the song provokes an interesting discussion. Some folks see it as not much more than a fun, crude rock anthem about strip clubs, especially when you place it in the context of the 80s hair metal scene, glam metal scene. I might get in trouble for saying hair metal. Man, you can't get away with anything. The band's image was built on hedonism and excess, so the song felt like a reflection of that era and the lifestyle that came with it. But of course, interpretations vary. I'd love to know what you think of this song. I think, it's metal from the 80s. All right, let's get into lighter fare. I mean, we've talked about, clubs. Now let's talk about cannibalism. Oh man, taboo songs. Some taboo songs were intentionally made to be taboo, knowing full well that they may be completely shunned, but it would bring press to the song and to the band. Our next song on the list of 7 taboo songs is definitely that kind of track. It was deliberately made to be banned by AM radio. At number 2, I've got Timothy by the Buoys. Timothy by the Buoys from 1970 isn't just a catchy pop song. It's a story that demands attention and sticks with you after that last note. It's a horror movie filmed over a Disney soundtrack, right? Sounds like the Partridge Family. Who would have thought that a song about cannibalism would be a top 20 hit on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1970? Rupert Holmes, the writer of Timothy, he certainly didn't. He wrote the song 9 years before he gave us the irresistible #1 smash Pina Colada song, Escape, the Pina Colada song.
If you like pina coladas.
Rupert cooked up a deliberately provocative tale about 3 men trapped underground in a coal mine. As the minutes stretched on, 2 of them decide they'll survive by any means necessary, even if it means feasting on their fallen companion. Their fallen companion being Timothy. Now, let's be clear, the song doesn't spell out every grisly detail, but it drops enough hints to let your imagination fill in the horror while keeping the mood almost cartoonishly jaunty in its melody.
Timothy, Joe was looking at you.
The name Timothy, that isn't random. Actually, Rupert Holmes used it to tap into a sense of victimhood and to give the terrifying scenario a relatable boy next door image.
Timothy, God, what did we do?
It all comes to a chilling conclusion in verse 6. My stomach was full as it could be, and nobody ever got around to finding Timothy.
My stomach was full as it could be.
Here's what Rupert Holmes told me about this song.
That could get banned, but it's not about drugs and it's not about sex because those things will just be off. They won't even play it. I said, this could get its toe in the door. And so I wrote a song, completely contrived, about 3 boys trapped in a mine. And when they're pulled free, they don't know what happened to one of them, but they know they're not hungry anymore.
My stomach was full as it could be, and nobody.
And it was called Timothy. And it went up the chart like 2 digits a week. It would go from 99 to 96. And what was happening was radio stations would play it because it had a good groove, had a good feel, and the singer was good.
When they broke through to pull us.
But then they would listen to the record and slowly realize what it was about. They would pull it off the air. The kids would call in and say, why aren't you playing that record? They say, because it's disgusting. You shouldn't be listening to that. It's about cannibalism. Well, all you have to do is tell a kid something's disgusting and he shouldn't be listening to it, and he'll want to hear it.
Of course.
So the record climbed the charts, and it was my first top 20 song as a songwriter. I'm actually kind of proud. I didn't know anyone in the music business except pretty much this junior engineer. It would be kind of like a baked bean in a can of Campbell's baked beans, getting the world to notice him without opening the can. It was just a matter of mind over matter. It was completely calculated. People say, what kind of strange, sick guy is Rupert Holmes to write a song about cannibal? I wasn't a strange, sick guy. I was a hungry guy in his 20s trying to get into the business that I love. And I did it with some ingenuity and the help of a lot of teenagers who wanted to hear something that they shouldn't be listening to.
Just as Rupert designed it, some radio stations did ban it, and that made people want to buy the record and hear it even more. So that's what made it a hit. It was a highly requested song for stations that dared to play it, and it climbed to number 17 on the Billboard Hot 100. All right, let's see if you're ready for this one. At number 1 on our list of 7 Taboo songs, it's one of the most polarizing pieces in the catalog of Taboo songs. Talking about Frankie Teardrop by a band that I might get in trouble for saying, but you know what's their band? They're called Suicide.
Frankie Teardrop.
I'm going to take a deep breath before we do the deep dive on their 1977 track, Frankie Teardrop. This one's, it's a barn burner. If you've never heard the song or revisited it lately, you're in for a jolt. The stark, bizarre arrangement and the brutal lyrics are still rattling listeners decades later, including me. I heard it the other day and I couldn't finish it.
Frankie's gonna kill his kid.
Frankie Teardrop was the ultimate expression of this band's proto-punk vision and one of the most terrifying songs ever recorded. I'll argue that one till the cows come home. To put it in perspective, Lou Reed once said he wished he'd written it. And he wrote some really creepy songs, let's be clear.
Frankie picked up a gun.
The band, Suicide, was an American musical duo composed of vocalist Alan Vega and instrumentalist Martin Rebb. The group's pioneering music used minimalist electronic instrumentation. There were synthesizers and primitive drum machines. And in this song, this particular song, Alan Vega's blood-curdling screams are so realistic the critics warned listeners straight up, don't play this alone at night. Even fans say it feels like being trapped in a crime scene. And I can't say the real scene, though, what that is, because of, censors here. It's about how that content is delivered musically. Frankie Teardrop pushes a grim story over an eerie, what am I listening to soundscape, right? The contrasting delivery hits hard, a 10-minute arc that starts with a quiet, almost documentary-style narration and ends in a catastrophe that feels almost clinical in its detailing.
He's married, he's got a kid.
It's the kind of song that refuses to dress violence up in a metaphor. Every moment feels extremely tense and really demoralizing. The lyrics tell a wrenching tale of Frankie, a factory worker worn down by poverty and by pressure and stress.
Frankie can't buy enough food.
What unfolds is a descent into madness. It culminates in a man taking the lives of his family and then his very own life with a moment that haunts listeners. The image of Frankie pointing a weapon at a crib, and you can imagine what's in that crib. It's a depiction that's not just shocking for its violence, it's shocking for its blunt realism.
Pointed at the 6-month-old kid in the crib.
Now, Alan Vega said he wrote it after reading a newspaper story about a factory worker who took the lives of his family in despair. He said he wanted to hold up a mirror to America's underclass struggle in the 70s, and boy, did he ever.
Frankie with a gun to his head.
Now, I gotta say, a big part of the debate around Frankie Teardrop is the line between sympathy and condemnation. I mean, some hear the song as a dark social critique, drawing a bead on the crushing forces of economic hardship and the way that they can push a person past their breaking point.
He's just trying to survive.
But then others hear it as a distressing glamorization of violence where Frankie isn't just a man in trouble, but a character that the song invites you to relate to in troubling ways. I think that's taken a little far.
Oh, let's hear it for Frankie.
And then there's that infamous closing concept with the chilling line, "We're all Frankie." That lyric lands like a punch to the gut. It's more than a shock tactic. It's a chilling proposition that the same desperation and potential for violence lies dormant in all of us.
We're all Frankies. We're all lying in hell.
I mean, it's a statistic turned into a nightmare, a commentary on the fragility of the human psyche under extreme conditions. Singer Alan Vega delivers the vocals with a manic, unhinged quality, complete with those horrifying screams that add to the song's claustrophobic and nightmarish atmosphere.
Frankie's dead.
I mean, the aggressive vocal style was a major source of discomfort for early listeners. Many listeners have described feeling a racing heart and extreme anxiety while listening. Many have gotten physically sick, even vomiting. The song has been tied to some horrifying endings to some listeners, and I can't even get into it. The song's relentless drum machine, its unsettling tone, and sudden blood-curdling screams by vocalist Alan Vega have been cited as the cause of this. Even the artist was not immune to the song's effects. Actually, Alan once said that after recording his vocal takes for the song, he nearly ended up throwing up, and he dreaded performing it live because he actually did throw up many times and because of the physical toll that it took on him to just get it out. The band's session with producer Craig Leon, a 25-year-old who'd helped launch Blondie and the Ramones, was a game changer. Leon had this idea to push Alan's voice and Rev's keyboards through an early Eventide digital delay. And he cranked up the distortion there. He actually picked up that trick from Jamaican producer Lee Perry during a Bob Marley session. The track was initially titled Frankie Teardrop, the Detective Meets the Space Alien. Interesting. Alan Vega truncated the title and then totally reshaped the story after reading that newspaper story. You know, the father working 10-hour days to feed his family, but still unable to make ends meet, facing eviction, and then just snapping. And I think a few of these Taboo songs are right in the middle of right now. The narration stays breathless, punctuated by those creepy shrieks, all laid over Rev's relentless drum machine pulse, and a turbine-like drone that makes the whole thing feel unstoppable, almost unlistenable. Actually, in the 1984 Rolling Stone cover story, The Boss, Bruce Springsteen, talked about how this band influenced his Nebraska album. He said, and I quote, "It's one of the most amazing records I've ever heard. I love that record." And you can definitely hear that influence in Nebraska's Hard Edge Highway Tragedy State Trooper, as well as the title track, really.
Lincoln, Nebraska.
But in the end, Frankie Teardrop has retained its power to truly disturb and rattle listeners. The song didn't chart on any record surveys, no surprise. Radio stations absolutely refused to play it. And the band's self-titled album was largely ignored in the US, achieving a little commercial success in the UK. And pop culture radio host Tom Sharpling created the Frankie Teardrop Challenge. He dared listeners to endure the track alone in the dark. Few have successfully completed that challenge.
He's gonna kill his wife and kid.
I can't do it. Can you? Famous critic Lester Bangs called the song 10 Minutes of Terror and said it might be the scariest song ever recorded, and Lester knows his stuff, or knew his stuff. Since then, stories and urban legends have been shared about listeners being physically unable to finish it. Some got sick, others swore off the band forever, some took their own life, and there's even a killing that was tied to it. That reputation gives it cult status, of course. The track influenced legendary bands who would come after that, including Nine Inch Nails, Joy Division, and Slayer and the like. The song became like a test of courage amongst hardcore music fans, at least. Listening to Frankie Teardrop all the way through, it's like an initiation ritual. Blogs and forums call it the scariest song in existence. What do you think? Could you actually listen to this thing in the dark all the way through? Have you ever tried? I don't recommend it. It's a pretty freaky song, but I think the social commentary has some merit there. What do you think? What do you think of these Taboo songs? Crazy stuff here. Let's have a great discussion. What are your memories of the songs? Should we do more Taboo songs, or should this be the end of them? I know we're kind of in a place. I know I said I'd be more positive. This is one that I already kind of put together. But I think it brings up some interesting conversation around this. But let's have a great discussion. Well, if you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.